please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. Let's get you the big story from the aviation space we promised before the break. With less than 10 days to go for the deadline, the government says no airline has bid for Air India yet. The last day for submitting bids is the 31st of this month. That's not all. The government may not at all go ahead with the stake sale if they do not get the right price for the Maharajah. Ashpreet Sethi is joining us now. Ashpreet, the aviation secretary has categorically told you that the government retains the rights to sell or not to sell Air India if the bid price is found to be inadequate. What else are you picking up?
Well, it's quite early in the day as far as Air India bids are concerned. But remember, the last day for submitting bids is May 31st. That's the kind of deadline that the government has set. Now, what the Civil Aviation Secretary told me is that they are looking at completing the full process. They are hopeful that by end of 2018, they will be able to go ahead and divest Air India. However, the question remains whether they will get the right price for the Maharajah at all or not. Now, what he also went ahead and said that if they do not get the right price, then they may look at not selling Air India, may have to go for a rebid. Those are options that the government is already considering. Now, remember, Indigo is the only airline which has given a formal expression of interest to the Aviation Ministry. However, as far as other airlines are concerned, even Jet Airways has not given a formal letter to the Aviation Ministry. However, there is, of course, a big chance of them going ahead and bidding by May 31st. Remember, the qualified bidders will be announced by June 15. That is the target the government is looking at. And by August end, they will be announcing the final successful bidder. However, there is a catch that the successful bidder, even if he's the highest bidder, will be announced only after all regulatory approvals are got on board. So that's the Air India story that we will be looking at. By 15 June, there will be a big clarity coming in as to which all bidders have gone ahead and said yes to Air India.
First of all, we are very hopeful because the buzz that we have received is very positive. Going by the number of questions, clarifications which we received, that indicates the sentiment and the mood in the market, and that has been very positive. And therefore, we are very hopeful of a successful expression of interest stage. And as far as reducing floor price, etc. is concerned, no, I'm confident that that need will not arise at all.
Now, speaking of the aviation sector, flyers may be in for a big relief very soon. The Aviation Ministry released the first draft of the air passenger charter today. The charter proposes that flyers should be allowed to cancel flight tickets free of charge within 24 hours of booking. This as long as there are at least 4 days left for the scheduled departure. That's not all. The charter, among other measures, also proposes that airlines would have to refund full ticket amount to passengers in case a flight get delayed by more than 4 hours. The draft will be kept open for public consultation for 30 days. The government expects to notify it by mid-July.
It's very close to becoming reality. Many of these features are in fact going to be rolled out within the next 30 to 60 days. The idea, of course, is to be able to transform the passenger experience through Air Seva, which is what we are doing. And Air Seva is the umbrella brand, and within the brand are 4 very important elements. One is the passenger charter, which we are strengthening dramatically to strengthen passenger rights, make their travel a lot better, a lot more convenient. Second is Digi Yatra, to provide an all digital experience as you go through our airports, as you board our flights. Number 3 is the Air Seva app, which we are completely upgrading and releasing in such a way that it becomes even more valuable for passengers. And number 4 is connectivity in the skies.
Meanwhile, the Civil Aviation Secretary R.N. Chaubey told my colleague Ashpreet Sethi today that the Aviation Ministry is constantly battling for bringing aviation turbine fuel, commonly known as jet fuel, under the ambit of the GST. Chaubey feels that bringing airlines under GST would be beneficial for the airlines as they could earn input tax credit. An input tax credit is claimed when a company pays tax on output after reducing the tax already paid on inputs.
This ministry has been consistently taking up this matter for bringing aviation turbine fuel within the ambit of GST. We are continuing that dialogue even now. This is more relevant because the aviation turbine fuel prices have gone up considerably in the last 1.5 years. And therefore, it is important that the airlines are protected from the shock of high fuel prices. And at the end of the day, all those benefits essentially get passed on to the passengers.
Protest by Tuticorin residents against the health hazards of a proposed expansion of Sterlite's copper smelter plant took a violent turn today. At least 4 people were killed and several injured in Tamil Nadu city after police lathi charged on protesters who torched police vehicles. Jude Sanet joins us now with more details. Jude, how did these protests turn violent today?
Before we get to how they turned violent, let me give you some context and a latest update. What we are given to understand is that 8 people have been confirmed as dead and nearly 30 protesters injured. This after police excesses on protesting citizens of Tuticorin, the coastal city in southern Tamil Nadu, had taken a violent turn. Now, as you rightly mentioned, 100 days have, it's been 100 days since these protests first took place, and a Tuticorin Bandh was called upon today to go about, embarking on a march that the protesters plan to take from the city to, of course, the Sterlite copper plant. And that's when things turned ugly because police, from what we are given to understand, unable to control the crowd, started firing on these protesters, which is when the protest itself took a bit of a tragic turn with nearly 8 protesters feared dead. Now, interestingly enough, even as these protests have been taking place, the protesters themselves have been alleging that the copper plant, as far as Sterlite is concerned, which remember, is of course the copper plant for Vedanta, is polluting the environment. That's the main cause of concern here. They want the copper plant shut. But of course, the news taking a violent turn with reports of police firing, killing 8 protesters and nearly injuring 30 protesters itself. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Edappadi Palaniswamy has appealed for calm and peace and even assured protesters that necessary action will be taken against these police excesses. Even politicians like Kamal Hassan, the principal opposition party, the DMK's MK Stalin, and of course Rajinikanth coming up in arms against police excesses, saying that necessary action should be taken for police firing on these protesters. Back to you.
Jude, many thanks for bringing us up to speed with the developments. That was the latest from Tuticorin. Meanwhile, Kerala's health department has been put on high alert after 10 people died in Kozhikode due to Nipah virus. A nurse who worked at the Taluk hospital in Kerala died after being exposed to the virus. Earlier, State Health Minister K.K. Shailaja said that the nature of the virus was yet to be ascertained. Those who have died are mainly from Calicut and Malappuram. There is no vaccine yet for the virus, which spreads mostly through direct contact. Doctors say that the virus spreads fast and leads to death in 70% cases.
പലയിടത്തും നടന്ന മരണങ്ങളെല്ലാം കൂട്ടിച്ചേർത്ത് എക്സാജറേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് പറയുന്നത് ആളുകളെ പേടിപ്പിക്കാനേ ഉതകുള്ളൂ. വളരെ വ്യക്തമായി ഞങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇത് കൃത്യമായിട്ട് ഐഡന്റിഫൈ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ആ വിവരം കൃത്യമായി പുറത്തു വിടുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇതൊന്നും നമ്മൾ മറച്ചു വെക്കുന്ന കാര്യമല്ല. അങ്ങനെ വിടുമ്പോൾ ഹെൽത്ത് ഡയറക്ടർ DMO ഇവർ 2 പേരെ ചുമതലപ്പെടുത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. അവരാണ് അന്നു കിട്ടുന്ന റിപ്പോർട്ട് അത് പ്രൈവറ്റ് ഹോസ്പിറ്റലായാലും ഗവൺമെന്റ് ഹോസ്പിറ്റലായാലും നമ്മൾ ശേഖരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
Now on to the international headline of the day. In an attempt to open up the Chinese market, China's finance ministry today announced that it will cut import tariffs on certain vehicles to 15% from 25%. CNBC's Eunice Yoon gets us more details. Eunice, what are you picking up?
The finance ministry said that China's cutting tariffs for car and car parts. This is what they said. For cars, the tariff drops from 25% to 15%. For car parts, the tariffs drop to 6%. And those lower tariffs are going to kick in on July 1st. Now, the move comes after reports that the U.S. and China have been heading for a deal on ZTE. This is the Chinese telecoms maker that's been in near collapse after the U.S. Commerce Department had imposed sanctions on the company, disallowing U.S. companies from selling critical components to ZTE. Well, getting a lifeline for the company was a key demand for the company and Chinese negotiators in the U.S. But the two sides have reportedly agreed on a broad outline for the deal. The U.S. would lift the ban if ZTE agreed to make changes in management, including board seats, and possibly pay...
Get straight to the top story this evening. Spiraling fuel prices continue to dominate the headlines today as well. Last evening, we told you that the government is mulling a comprehensive plan to douse the fuel fire. Now, top government officials are telling us that a decision on some relief measures is expected during this week itself. Sapna Das joins us with the exclusive details. Sapna, how is the government looking at the situation and what kind of strategy is it likely to adopt to tackle the fuel price increase?
A clear view, at least in some of the quarters of North Block, is the fact that probably the way the oil prices have risen, or rather the retail prices have risen in the domestic market, is nothing short of a crisis situation, and consumers are expecting relief from the government. Having said that, they're also indicating that probably measures will have to be taken together, because the rise in the crude prices has been coupled with the fall in the rupee, and this has created a kind of a double whammy impact. Having said that, however, in terms of the key question of excise duty relief, they're very clear that the fiscal impact will have to be kept in mind, and probably this is going to be the view of the revenue officials. The fact that right in the early of the financial year, can the government afford to take a hit of anywhere between 13,000 crores to 26,000 crores, depending on how much the quantum of the cut is and at what time it comes about, if at all. Officials are also very clear that if there is any movement that is likely on the excise duty front, it will have to be accompanied by a kind of a relief on the VAT duties also by the state government. So now that again is a bit of a question mark. Last but not the least, measures taken together, probably some role will have to be played by the oil marketing companies also in terms of the daily price revisions. This is what we are getting to hear from some of the quarters in North Block. It's a dynamic situation. We have to wait and watch and see what really happens. Despite the fact that there are indications that some decision may be likely by this week.
Sapna, many thanks for getting us that exclusive story. And as you said, a decision may be taken this week itself as the government gets cracking on spiraling fuel prices. In fact, talking to us last evening, the convener of BJP's energy cell, Narendra Taneja, said that the government will ensure that the pain due to spiraling prices is alleviated soon. He added, and I quote, "These are political decisions, and when we have to take political decisions, sometimes we can take decisions within 60 seconds. Listen in.
The government is going to do everything possible in order to make sure the benefits are available to the people, and the pain that people are suffering today is reduced to the extent the government can afford to do it. But one thing is very clear: at the same time, reforms will continue, modernization will continue. These decisions are not administrative, these are political decisions, and when we have to take political decisions, sometimes we can take decisions within 60 seconds. So wait and watch.
Well, let's move on and get you the market action of the day now. The Dalal Street recovered from the day's low to snap its 5-day losing streak and end mildly in the green. The Nifty closed with gains of 0.1% and ended just shy of the 10,550 mark. Sensex gained 35 points in the green. The mid-cap index recovered in today's trading session and fared better than the benchmark indices to end 0.25% higher. The Nifty Bank recovered after State Bank of India rallied almost 4% after its fourth quarter earnings. Now, as the Modi government completes 4 years in office, we decided to take a look at how the markets have fared under this regime. While the Nifty generated returns of over 43%, the broader markets outperformed that index to generate returns of over 70%. In fact, the Indian market has even outperformed its Asian peers. Anuj Singhal is here to break down the market performance for us. Anuj, Indian markets certainly have exceedingly done well over the last 4 years, haven't they?
Well, the markets have given the Modi government a thumbs up. In fact, that's been markets' preferred scenario. And if you look at the performance of Indian markets over the last 4 years under the Modi regime, it's up about 43% for the year on the Nifty and about 70% for the Bank Nifty. Mid-cap index up 81%. It's actually better if you compare it from the November 2013 period. And I'm taking that period because the market had priced in Narendra Modi coming to power somewhere around November 2013, and that's where the Modi rally had started. So the actual performance is even more, 67%, 110% and 125% for the major indices. How does that compare to the Asian peers? Well, the two big peers that we have, Hang Seng and Kospi, in the same period have underperformed. They've also gone up, but clearly not as much as the Indian markets have. One key feature about Indian market rally over the last 4 years has been that it's been all about domestic stories. Bajaj Finance is up nearly 1,000%. Bajaj Finserv up about 560%. Eicher Motors up about 300%. Maruti up 250%. And IndusInd Bank up about 250%. All of these companies cater to the domestic demand. On the other hand, the global picture has looked a bit murky, and the top losers reflect that. Tata Motors, ONGC, Sun Pharma, Lupin, Dr. Reddy's, all of them actually down in this period. Also, what's interesting is that some of PM Modi's pet schemes, there the stocks have done well. You wanted to back, for example, Housing for All, Canfin Homes up 435%, Group Finance up nearly 300%. You wanted to back Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, build more toilets. Companies in that space have done well. Somani, Serra Ceramics, both these have been more than doublers over the last 4 years. Namami Gange scheme, ITD cementation has been a six-bagger in that period. Also, what's been interesting in the Narendra Modi era is the FI and DI inflows. Now, this is till November 8, 2016. Why was that date important? The demonetization date. Before that, FI has bought 22,000 crores, DI has bought 75,000 crores. Look at what happens after that. Quite a bit of withdrawal from FIIs, almost 91,000 crore, and still the market had the biggest rally, and that's because the DIIs pumped in money, 1.5 lakh crores. So one big advantage of DI, of demonetization, of course, was that a lot of money was channeled into financial assets, and that's where the market also benefited. Net, it's been a good period over the last 4 years.
Anuj, many thanks for taking us to the market performance during the Modi government. Let's move on and get you earnings from the country's largest lender, the State Bank of India. The bank has reported a second consecutive quarterly loss, mainly due to a surge in provisions. The bank's fresh slippages rose 30% sequentially, but the stock gained in trade nearly 4% after the bank's MD says that all bad assets have been recognized. Ritu Singh is joining us with the key takeaways. Ritu, what are the highlights?
Well, it's been quite a disappointing quarter for State Bank of India, primarily because of the stress that has risen for the bank. And this has been the case with all of the other banks. So SBI is not exactly an exception here. But yes, slippages have risen to almost 33,000 crore levels, which has resulted in a high loss for the bank of over 7,700 crore rupees. Now, if you look at the ratios, gross NPAs have increased to 10.9% versus 10.3% in the previous quarter. And net NPAs, after making provisions, at 5.73% versus 5.61% in the previous quarter. So the jump in provisions because of the high increase in the number of bad loans, that has jumped almost 35% just sequentially and stands at over 24,080 crore rupees. I'll give you some details on the slippages which we've been able to get from the management. Slippages because of the Feb 12 circular are about 11,000 odd crore rupees, of which the standard restructured and 525 slippages are 6,734 crore rupees. From STR, 4,520. From S4A, 1,142 crore rupees. From corporates outside of Feb 12 circular, that slippage is 11,601 crore rupees. And the remaining is from the retail, agri and SME. So that is primarily what has caused a lot of stress for the bank in this quarter. Net interest margins stand at 2.5% versus 2.74% in the same quarter last year. And net interest income has actually seen a degrowth of 5.2%. But going forward, the management has also given a guidance where, over the next 2 years, they aim to improve the NPAs and grow the credit to over 12%. But that, of course, is a far way away. The management does believe that recovery from NCLT accounts will be in the range of 48 to 50% in the first list, but it will be slightly lower in the second list. But they are hopeful. FY19, in the words of the chairperson, will be a year of hope for them, and FY20 will be a year of happiness.